This is my heater. I dare you to hit it.
He'll be sorry.
Want the heater? I'll give it to you.
Basketball, maybe they don't hit it.
A swing and a drive to deep right.
Clear the deck. Cannonball coming.
Left field. It is out of here.
What up? What's good? Baseball Unstitched. We're back. College baseball is kind of the shit right now. If anybody didn't realize that, we are down to the wire. Number 1 seeds falling left and right. Flax, how have you been enjoying the college baseball regionals, super regionals, and eventually World Series here?
Well, to start, I was really enjoying the Division III College World Series postseason, the regionals, super regionals. I have to start. Shout out to my own Denison Big Red. For the first time in school history, got to the College World Series, won a game at the College World Series, and were one of the last 6 teams standing. There are 330 teams in Division III college baseball. There's a very large spectrum of good baseball and bad baseball within Division III, but at the top of it, they played at an elite level this year, and it was very fun to watch. I feel very prideful to have played as a part of that program, and it was a fun week. But it was also my Super Bowl this weekend because it was the regionals. Squeeze play has been on in my house all weekend. Ryan just had to get me to turn it off prior to starting this episode because Murray State is absolutely putting in work right now against Ole Miss, and I will find out when this episode ends recording whether or not they do end up knocking off another host, and that would be the 6th host of 16 that gets knocked off and sent on their merry way, headed into super regionals. It's been a blast. I said this on Twitter the other day that I think the regionals are the best viewing experience of all 3 levels of the postseason. Maybe the conference tournaments are better. The only hard part about the conference tournaments is you have to work really hard with a lot of different screens to be able to watch a lot of games at once.
Never been a problem for you.
No, I have figured it out. But for the casual baseball viewer, squeeze play is great because they do it for you. There are points, and when I say there are points, there's a lot of time spent in an octo box because there's a lot of games happening at once, and they do not stagger these start times.
I do not know how you do it.
It's the only way I can watch. It's the only way my brain can manage seeing baseball. And at one point I was on the phone with you yesterday, I literally saw 3 home runs happen in a span of 5 seconds, and it just happened to be that it was going on and they had the broadcast on the one game that didn't have one, and I thought it was hilarious. But no, it's been phenomenal. There will be less happening next weekend because it's super regionals. We may get to Sunday and not have some games because teams will just sweep through the super regional, and then we'll be down to 8 in Omaha. So we're almost there.
So for all of you questioning why I didn't ask Flax about his weekend, think about everything he just said and notice that I did it without asking about his weekend.
That was my weekend.
See, smarter than I look sometimes, ladies and gentlemen. Guys, we got some good stuff for you today. One, we're going to talk about the quote-unquote Kobe Mayo flop, which is a fun conversation for us to have. The Dodgers are quietly stockpiling arms. They made a move earlier this week and a move the day before recording this podcast. But we're going to go a little bit deeper into that, why they're doing it, what they got, and also what they gave up as well in moving for one Alexis Diaz from the Cincinnati Reds. From there, we're going to talk about the bookends, the Tigers playing out of their mind so far to start this season. And then the other bookend, a team not playing out of their mind this season, which would unfortunately be our current hometown Colorado Rockies. Yeah. And then if we have time, we'll find out if we have time today. We're going to end this with our first ever 2 months of the baseball season are over award show, of which we'll be crowning multiple MVPs, Rookie of the Years, and Cy Young Award winners. And we'll see how that goes. I had to come off of my horse here a little bit and remember that James Wood has already reached his rookie limits, which makes me want to cry. But we'll deal with that later.
First ever because we've actually never been doing a podcast 2 months into a baseball season. So
this is
someone
just
call
like
it inaugural.
This is just like when my mom tells me I'm the best oldest child. I might be the only oldest child, but it doesn't make me not the best. Okay,
there you go. Just keep telling yourself that.
I tell myself a lot of things, Flex. I tell myself, and some people have to hear them nowadays on a podcast. So either way, opening thoughts, Flax, real quick. If you got anything else on college baseball, tell us.
Nothing major. Just keep an eye out for the fact that you will see pitchers throw this weekend that have only thrown once or twice all season, and it's the greatest thing about college baseball postseason, is that like this is where freshmen shine. I guess the only other thing I knew I'd have another thing. The only other thing I have, and I said this earlier in the season, and I said this when March Madness happened. Because of the transfer portal, as frustrating as it is, as much as there is no policing around it, it's not great, it's driven by NIL, whatever. The beauty of it is the parity that we are starting to get over a broader swath of teams across Division I athletics as a whole, but definitely baseball. The reason you're seeing 4 seeds and 3 seeds in these regionals really compete is because they have players that could easily be playing in the SEC and the ACC. There are guys that are playing for a 5th season at those teams. There aren't enough spots. So these kids come out of high school and they go to the SoCon, they go to the Sun Belt, they go to mid-major conferences, and they dominate. And now you're seeing teams that are having the day after they're dropping out of a regional, their conference players of the year are leaving and entering the transfer portal and most likely going to fill these gaps at SEC, ACC, Big Ten, what was Pac-12 teams immediately. And I kind of love the parity because it makes it exciting in the postseason. And you have to remember there is a reason for everyone to migrate. If you're playing at a lower exposure school, moving to an SEC or a Power 4 team is really what I should say, you're doing it for the exposure for long term. If you go and put up a similar season like that in your sophomore year or your junior year, you're giving yourself an opportunity to continue playing baseball that may not happen if you're playing at one of those schools. There's a very real stigma that if you're not playing Power 4 baseball, you're not seeing good enough arms for major league scouts to truly trust your bat-to-ball skills. This was something that a guy like Jacob Wilson dealt with coming out of Grand Canyon University, and it wasn't until he started playing Team USA baseball that people were like, oh, okay, this is real. Like, he didn't just go off at GCU in the WAC. Like, he actually can hit the ball and has the same bat-to-ball skills, and now we see it. So that was the only other thing I had around college baseball, was just I'm enjoying the parity. I think it's cool to see.
I love it. I absolutely love it. My opening thoughts are simple. Since I stepped into Camden Yards, the Orioles are 3-0. You're welcome. That's what I got for you.
Yeah, baby.
You're welcome. No problem.
Yeah.
Got your back.
And Colton Cowser's back.
Now is he up?
Cooper Hummel DFA today. Sorry about that. To Cooper Hummel.
I hate to hear it's Hummel, but in all of our discussions, how did that name never come up as the guy that was good?
Yeah, I have no idea. You know what? To be quite honest with you, I forgot he was on the 26-man roster.
They did recent. He is a recent pickup, and they DFA'd him immediately, and then did some weird stuff.
And they signed him to a major league deal, which is just like unusual. Usually, you sign a guy to a minor league deal and then move him.
Sure.
But they did that because I think they just needed to like clear 40-man space. Right? If you option him back and forth, then you have to clear somebody else off the 40-man, and he was much easier than anybody else they wanted.
Nonetheless, my quick hit, my transition into the quick hitter Colby Mayo Baltimore Oriole flop conversation, I think is put into play here nicely. For all of you who did not see it, Colby Mayo had a attempted interference situation.
Well, let's set the stage a little bit.
Go ahead.
So Colby Mayo hits an RBI single to left field. If everybody wants to close their eyes and imagine the scene I'm setting. We're at Camden Yards wearing all orange uniforms in the pajama pants. But no, Colby Mayo, single to left field, throws coming home, gets cut off. He was trying to take second base, rounding first on his base hit. When the throw was cut off, it was immediately thrown to second. And then the White Sox second baseman walked the ball back towards the first baseman, got Colby Mayo in a rundown, and when Colby Mayo turned back towards second base to try and head back that direction, he made an attempt to get an interference call made by running into the fielder. So for those who don't know, if the fielder stays standing in the base running lane and the base runner turns around and runs into him, he's automatically granted that base because he was not given a lane of running to get past a guy who did not have the ball. Ryan, thoughts?
My favorite part of this whole thing is that Mayo got a lot of crap throughout socials and the media. And listen, for everybody who gets an opportunity, go watch the play. Mayo very obviously turned and seeked out the contact. There's no question.
Yeah, he went out of his way.
What was happening, right? And it looked like the proverbial, and the only time I could ever truly say this in a way, a flop in baseball. It did. Let's stop, though. And this is the part of the conversation that kills me. I cannot count how many times throughout my very short amateur career in baseball that I heard from a coach, hey, man, when you're in a rundown, if he's in your way, just run into him. They'll give you the base. Look for the contact. The amount of times that was told to me, and by the way, never put into practice by any of us.
No.
Never. Right? But this is what we're told to do in these scenarios. And then for the whole world to lose, just be confused why Mayo would do that, call it a flop, and be upset about it was very odd to me because enough of these people who are making these comments have heard that in the dugout, in Little League, in middle school, high school baseball, in travel ball. We've all heard it. I get that it was egregious because he kind of was out of the baseline and seeking the contact, but being surprised that somebody might do that is a little asinine to me.
There's two sides to the response. So on the side of the baseball play that you're talking about, people getting all up in arms about him seeking out the contact, I get over yourself. It's a baseball play. It's how it works. That's what the guys are taught to do. On the flip side,
seek out a lot more contact, by the way, in baseball.
Yes, they did. Until it was not allowed. Ask Jonathan Lucroy about that. But no, seriously. On the flip side of that, if you're Kobe Mayo and you look at how things then transpired, I think that's where I get to a point where I'm on two sides of the fence. As an Orioles fan, I'm on the side of the fence of, all right, we've been asking somebody to bring fire to the ballpark for months now. Someone decided they were going to do it. Someone decided they were going to start something. Was it well placed? Probably not. But was it well intentioned? For sure. And the team needs that. And that's great. It's a momentum builder. It gets guys going in the right direction. It lets leaders stand up. Sometimes there are not always opportunities for leaders to step in and do something about stuff. And it's really hard to be a leader in those situations. He gave them an opportunity to do that. The first guys off the bench were Ryan O'Hearn and Cedric Mullins, as it should have been. The flip side of that, as a non-Orioles fan, is Kobe Mayo is now making his third stint in the big leagues. All of them have been very short-lived, or at least the first two. He has not done anything that tells me he should be getting up and shoving somebody. Him getting up and giving a shoulder and a shove to Sosa, probably unwarranted. Him getting shoved in the back, also somewhat unwarranted. But as it transpired, I thought the follow-on of it turning into a benches clearing whatever was probably the part that was more annoying to me, because I was like, the baseball play's one thing, but recognizing how dumb it looked, you stand up, you laugh it off, you go back to the bench, it is what it is. But it turning into a benches clearing brawl, I have never understood. Why did it need to get to that point?
Listen, the only thing I have to say outside of what I already did is it's pretty ballsy. It's pretty ballsy for Mayo to be the one to stand up and push the guy. At the same time, when you look at how he's been handled going up and down at the major league level by the Baltimore Orioles, him getting up and being pissed off is not surprising.
No, it's true. It also led to one of the funniest things that happens in baseball, and something that can only be created, I think, at a couple of ballparks, but very specifically at Camden Yards, is the bullpens, by contract,
they
have to come down to the infield when that happens. Which there's another part of this topic that I do want to have a conversation about, but the bullpen does have to come down. There are few, if any, other bullpens in baseball where both bullpens have to leave from the same door. And it is so funny to me that they are basically like letting each other out the door and saying, no, after you. And then they're sprinting next to each other until they get there, and then they start yelling at each other. Like, they could just have their own brawl out there.
Do you know how funny it would be in that bullpen to watch them have a brawl and yell at each other between levels of the bullpen?
Yes. Yeah. One of them has the higher ground there.
Flax,
and it's not the Orioles.
Can you quickly let people know what that bullpen looks like if they don't know? I mean, I can explain it to you, but you've been there more than me.
If you've never seen it, please go look up the Orioles bullpen. It's called Camden Yards if you aren't aware. But it is two bullpens stacked on top of each other in left center field. The Orioles are on the lower level, the visitors are on the upper level, and they both exit from a small fence door in dead center field. And so they both have to come down a small stairwell from their side to the left of them in the bullpen and out that door. So not only are the Orioles like coming down those stairs, but at some point, like, there's got to be a guy on a visiting team that's really trying to bull rush his way out there. So like somebody on the Orioles has to let him down the stairwell because it's the same stairwell. And then they have to also let him out the door.
I just hope they're all laughing about it while they do it. No, sir, after you. We'll yell at each other here momentarily. Don't
it's
you dare
It's the funniest thing. But my other thing on the bench is clearing brawl, and I have to get this out there so that people understand that this is a thing.
Let it fly.
I don't know if you saw my tweet about this. So a lot of Orioles fans were really up in arms that Gunnar was on the outskirts of another brawl. If you don't remember, last year when Heston Kjerstad got hit in the head by the Yankees, a brawl was happening around home plate. Gunnar Henderson notably on the outside of the brawl. And people were really upset that Gunnar Henderson wasn't getting in the mix. First of all, why in the world would you want your franchise player to be in the mix of that? Why? I want him as far away from it as possible. My second thing on that, there is a possibility that it is in his contract that he is not allowed. Clayton Kershaw back in the day was not allowed to leave the dugout. Otherwise, he would be fined. Now, he did leave the dugout, and he would happily pay a fine because that's what you do. But unless Clayton Kershaw was the guy who hit somebody or got hit or was in the midst of an argument, you'd never see him in the middle of everything either. There are certain guys you don't want in the mix. Gunnar Henderson is one of those. Being upset that he's not ready to square up to somebody, like, you think the White Sox, if they could do it over again, would want Tim Anderson to square up with somebody? I'm not saying he was a franchise player, but look at his careers after he got knocked out. If I were the Indians, I wouldn't want Jose Ramirez squaring up to anybody, even knowing his fighting prowess. Like,
now that you know it, now that you got to see his fighting prowess. Well, to wrap this up real quick for everybody, for those of you who are saying, Flax, there's no shot in hell that his contract could possibly say something like that. Keep in mind that the Colorado Rockies don't allow any of their players, to our knowledge, to snowboard or ski.
Yep.
It's literally part of their contract. So
teams can do anything they want. Contracts are completely open to whatever anybody is willing to sign on the dotted line to.
100%.
There are no there are standards, but like it's past templates. There's anything you could put in there.
All right, well, let's push through this quick hitter that's never as quick as we ever think it will be. The Dodgers this week made some what feels like minor headlines, but I think is a little bit larger of a topic due to the injuries they have within the pitching staff, and it's not just the starters; it is within the bullpen as well. And that was the acquisition of Alexis Diaz, who is the brother of Flax. His first name is eluding me.
Edwin?
Edwin, thank you. See, why can't I spit out Edwin today? Happy Monday, people.
I don't know.
The younger brother of Edwin Diaz.
Good pull by me.
The younger brother of Edwin Diaz. Alexis Diaz came out of the gate very hot as a young major leaguer. Large frame that he throws with. Pretty good stuff. He has become a two-pitch pitcher at the major league level, but over the last year or so has pitched at a much lower level than we've seen him pitch in the past, currently sporting a 12 ERA in 6 appearances this year, 5 walks over 6 innings, a 2.176 whip. throwing the four-seam fastball 66% of the time and the slider 34% of the time. Again, as I said, started off his career well, and I want to make sure people know that. Through 130 games, he had a 2.47 ERA, a 3.42 FIP, and a minuscule, comparatively to what I just told you, 1.076 WHIP. The Dodgers got him for what most people would consider pennies on the dollar in a 1-to-1 trade with the Cincinnati Reds, and we'll talk about who the Reds got here in a moment. But Flex, the Dodgers look to be potentially stockpiling arms right now with a laundry list of guys who are injured. What are your thoughts overall on a move like this from them and what they're continuing to do?
Well, okay, let me start with this. If I'm a team and the Dodgers start to come calling for one of my players, I'm either A, asking for a lot more than I normally would.
Sure.
Or B, I'm looking myself in the mirror wondering what in the world they see in this guy. Because they're not a group that tends to miss. Now, they also traded for Will Klein from the Seattle Mariners this week. That's another team that I would say the same thing about. So I'm curious. I'm a little bit more curious when it comes to that trade. But when it comes to the Reds, I feel like I'm kind of looking myself in the mirror saying, where am I at as a team? And what do I need? And so when I look at the trade and what they got in return, they got more of a high upside, longer term play, which I think fits a little bit more for their model, right? So that is the trade-off. You look at yourself and you say, who is it that they want? Why do they want him? What am I not doing right with him that they think they can do? Because they seem to think they can fix anybody that they go and grab. And they've done a pretty good job of it, up to this point at least. Yeah. And so, that they get Mike Villani, the Reds do, out of Long Beach State, 13th rounder in 2024. Guy is straight over the top with a hard fastball. His junior year at Long Beach State, a 3.24 ERA in 25 innings. Hasn't pitched a ton yet this year because he was on the 7-day IL. But I think for them, it's kind of a clean slate project, if you will. It's somewhat similar, a hard-throwing righty, someone who they could fit into the model, and is a relief guy and has been a relief guy since college. So I don't know. When it all breaks down, like you said, the Dodgers are stockpiling arms. I don't hate that they're stockpiling arms. If you want to go through the list and their injuries to pitchers right now, Michael Kopech, Kirby Yates, Evan Phillips, Blake Trinan, Broussard, Gratterall, Blake Snell, Roki Sasaki, and Tyler Glasnow. About half of those guys, maybe more, the outlook for this season is not great. So you have to go find more arms. You don't have a choice, right? We talked earlier in the year about whether or not Ohtani was going to throw. Getting kind of to a point where he's going to have to throw.
Yeah, I think for what the Dodgers are doing right now, it makes a lot of sense. We know that the Dodgers have stockpiled their organization with former driveline guys, especially over X amount of years. I think that says a lot to their willingness to go take flyers on guys like a Diaz who possess physical traits and attributes that would allow them to potentially be successful, have had previous success, which tells you they have some feel for overall pitching, and take a guy like that, try to add more spin, try to add more velo to the arm, and get what you can out of him. Additionally, too, I think another piece with Diaz is that he's scuffled so far. You get him still within his quote-unquote team controllable window. I like what the Dodgers are doing in this sense. Laundry list of players hurt. We've got to bring in arms, and we've got to give our development group, who has done a very good job in the past, a chance to help us find more guys who are not currently in this organization to fill that bullpen. Additionally, too, we know how major league teams at this point manipulate bullpens with DL stints, with options. You're always going to need people who can funnel in and out, and Diaz is a guy who has the ability to do that for them from both a option perspective and a contractual perspective. So I like what the Dodgers did here. I think the Klein move that you mentioned as well from Seattle is just the exact same thing.
Yep.
I think the biggest thing that we haven't talked about for the Reds and what they get out of this swap is, one, they get relief from Diaz's arbitration. Okay, Diaz
Yes.
was in a spot where he was going to start dictating not dictating, but he was going to have a say in what he was getting paid. Right? There's a potential that the Reds have saved themselves $2 to $6 million a year, depending on what year within arbitration we're at with him.
And for a team like that, that's a good chunk of money.
Because they're going to spend money this offseason, right?
Yep.
And if they don't, it would surprise the heck out of me because the Reds have the rotation. The Reds have an extremely good, solid, high upside core. And they have a bullpen that will eventually be either filled with new guys or figure it out, right? The other piece that this does for them, too, is the corresponding move was to bring up Lyon Richardson, who 12 games at the big league level in 2025. He's thrown to a tune of a 1.2 ERA, 15 total innings, 9 Ks. He's got a 4-pitch mix, and it's this classic mix that we see nowadays, which is pitches that go both ways that all play off of the the sinker cutter combo. I enjoy giving that type of guy an opportunity while making more decisions for who's going to be part of the true window moving forward in that bullpen. We're talking about a guy who's got 18 to 22 inches of arm side run on his sinker. It's never hurt anybody.
No, it's very rare that a mid-season trade or an early season trade, I guess I should say, benefits one team more than another. Yeah. Like when I look at this, it to me very much is a fairly even swap. If the Dodgers can get out of Diaz what he was doing in 22-23.
Yep.
And I think
they could get a little bit less and it would be just fine for what they need right now, to be fair.
Well, I want to take a little bit of time to kind of talk about Diaz and what he was doing in 2022 and 2023 and what he's not doing right now. And for starters, he's lost on average 3 to 4 miles an hour velo on his fastball. He's a 2-pitch
94.
93 now. He was around 95, 96 when he first got up in 22. When you look at that, that is the difference between low end of the league and high end of the league. That is a massive gap. A big number for big leaguers that I have come to understand is like the 93 to 94 range is when it starts to just like get on you a little faster, and then 98 is like the next level. So if he's sitting below that level where it's getting on you, which is like 91 to 93, you better be really good with where you're throwing it. And you better have a bunch more pitches so that you can confuse the hitter and throw it in different spots when he's going to be late because he's thinking about other things coming. That ain't what he's got. He's a fastball slider guy. The slider still moves a pretty good amount. But it's a fairly tight slider. So if it's going to work off of that fastball, it's got to move. It's got a good amount of horizontal run to it. It's got fairly standard IVB. But the biggest thing is that it's not hard enough. And if it's not hard enough and it's not located well, you're not going to have other numbers that suffice. And one thing the Dodgers have shown that they can do, whether it be to the result of future injury, is that they can get guys throwing harder.
100%.
Right? Like they could very well look at the body movements of Diaz from the past and from current and say, here's where things are getting a little bit off. Here's where you're flying open a little bit. You're losing it, you're getting under it, you're not staying behind it, whatever. Or let's grab the ball a different way and turn that four seam into a sinker. And let's go sinker slider. If we're not gonna add velo, let's change shape. Let's change grip, right? If you're a supinator, let's try and go with a wake seam shifted sinker instead of trying to pronate and then supinate between slider sinker. There's a lot that they can do there, and that's not to say that the Reds couldn't have, but when it came down to how they were constructing their roster and what was available, and the Dodgers probably coming to them and saying, hey, we want this guy, they kind of had their pick of the litter to say, well, we've got another guy we're ready to bring up because we've got a lot of prospects, and we could get another project, cut some cost out for ourselves, and kind of reset, which they're kind of at the right point to do.
Yeah, I like the move for both teams overall.
For sure.
It'll be very interesting to see what Diaz's season looks like by the end of the year. It'll be interesting to see how many innings he gets to the major league level, but I do have a feeling that when he comes back up, he will be throwing harder, and he might have a little bit more break on that slider because that's just what the Dodgers do. So more to come on that, but
Get him on that Blake Trinan train. Just sinker, slider, sinker, sweeper going the opposite directions.
Blake Trinan's sinker is my spirit animal, so
I believe that's a one-seam sinker, if I'm not mistaken.
it could be a 18-seam sinker. I don't even care, man. That thing is literally...
It's disgusting.
The amount of times that I have tweeted Blake Trinan's sinker as my spirit animal is egregious. Either way, moving on from spirit animals, let's talk about the bookends here. 57 games into the season, we've got a team playing really, really well, and of course the other side of that is a team not playing great. But let's start with the good. And the Detroit Tigers are trying to make sure everybody in the world knows that last year was anything but a fluke. Wow, they've done great. Let's kind of run through some easy stuff to start here. The three big acquisitions they made this offseason via free agency. Gleyber Torres, 800 OPS, playing good defense for them at second base. Tommy Canley, a 1.46 ERA. Yeah, he's throwing a bunch of changeups. And, of course, Jack Flaherty's decision to be a Detroit Tiger. He's thrown to the tune of a 3.94 ERA across 59 innings pitched. I don't know that they could have asked much more from that group. I mean, I'm sure some people are going to say Ryan Flaherty's got a 3.49, but when you have an offense...
Jack Flaherty.
Who did I say?
Ryan Flaherty.
Oh, welcome to Baltimore. Welcome to Baltimore. It's all right. At least you...
Jackson, you don't get to fix that one. I fixed that one.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Jack
I shouldn't have
Flaherty
done it. What am I doing to myself?
That's right. It's not going on the scorecard now. Either way,
man.
Jack Flaherty's thrown to the tune of a 3.94 ERA across 59.1 innings. Could you ask a little bit more? Sure, but that offense has been so good that asking for more just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Either way, Flax, thoughts off rip on the Detroit Tigers and some of these offseason acquisitions as we're starting there.
Yeah, I mean, you can call it an offseason acquisition or you could call it offseason adjustment. But Spencer Torkelson and Javi Baez are very clearly two important pieces to what's happening right now.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. Javi Baez right now is hitting 273, 308, 447. He's got a 112 OPS plus and a 1.3 B WAR. But those stats aside, he's taking such better at bats.
Yep.
He is forcing fastballs to be thrown to him. Javi Baez mashes fastballs when he gets them in the right counts and he takes his A swing at them. He is forcing those pitches to be thrown because he's not swinging at the slider away like his job depends on it. Spencer Torkelson's doing something very similar, but Spencer Torkelson's also hitting the breaking ball much better than he's hit it in a long time. He's hitting the slider extremely well, but he's also mashing the fastball a ton. He's seeing 50% of them. He's hitting, I think, 333 on them right now, slugging 583 on fastballs. There's no way to explain it other than Spencer Torkelson relearned how to hit a fastball. For 3 years, we watched Spencer Torkelson struggle at the big league level to hit a fastball over the plate. Not because he wasn't a good fastball hitter, but because hitting a hard fastball at the big league level is not easy to do. They don't throw it over the plate very often, especially if you're getting yourself behind in counts. He's been getting himself ahead in counts. He's walking at an unprecedented rate for him right now. He's walking 12.8% of the time. Good for 86th percentile in the league. Yeah. That's not Spencer Torkelson. Spencer Torkelson is a sub 10% walk guy, a sub 9% walk guy most of the time. Being a 12% walk guy enables you to get more pitches to hit. Also hitting in a lineup with guys like Kerry Carpenter, Javi Baez when he's hitting well.
Riley Green,
plenty of bats, also enables you to get more pitches to hit. If you show that you are a guy who can take advantage of them, you will not get as many pitches to hit. If you show that you will leave those alone, you will, in turn, get more pitches to hit. One thing he's doing well, and I know people are going to love this, I don't think it's a created stat. I think it's a result stat of taking better at bats and getting better pitches to hit. But his ability to pull the ball in the air is exponentially better than it's ever been in his time in the big leagues. Clearly, a guy who's big and strong like him pulling the ball in the air when it happens is going to be more successful than it's not. And clearly this year it's starting to be more successful than it's ever been. Having a 346 OBP while having a 235 average, just for like the sake of understanding, 2023 he had a 233 average, just 2 points lower. He only had a 313 OBP. 346 OBP and a 510 slug on a 235 average means when you are swinging the bat and making good contact, good things are happening. When you're taking good at bats, good things are happening.
100%. And you know, listen, this team is 39-21. We're going to move away from the offensive side, and we've mentioned both of their names here. Didn't really feel like there was a needed deep dive into Kerry Carpenter or Riley Green and what they're doing at the current moment. They're walking out there every day and being the player that we expected them to be. So, yes, they're a big part of this lineup, but Javi Baez emerging as a legitimate center fielder and playing the defense he's playing.
Yeah.
And going from, in his first 360 games as a Tiger, slashing 221, 262, and 347, to in the last 48 games, slashing 273, 308, and 447. That type of jump is what is going to help the Tigers move forward. Again, 360 games, a 2.1 B-WAR. In 48 games this season, he has a 1.3 B-WAR. He is closing in on being more valuable this year than he was for 3 seasons with the Tigers. Or the previous 3 seasons, I should say.
Yeah.
Regardless, Torkelson's resurgence has been big. But let's move over to the rotation here. There's one guy that everybody knows we have to mention because he's literally the best pitcher on the face of the earth right now. Sorry, Paul Skeens. And then there's one guy who nobody expected to be as good as he's been. But let's start with Skubal.
Yeah.
If there's one guy you probably don't want to face right now who's left-handed, there's only one other guy who's stood up to him all year and done similar stuff, and that to me is Max Fried. But Tarek Skubal has been unrealistically good over the last.
I thought you were going to say Chris Bubic.
Listen,
12 runs and 12 starts.
Bubic has been great, but Bubic doesn't have the same track record as the two names that I gave.
No. I agree.
I know you agree. Either way, Skubal, a 2.26 ERA so far this year. Hold on, wait for it, 0.793 whip, and a 14.4 K to walk ratio. Yeah. That's all world type shit.
Yeah, there's a level at which when you get, like, the higher you get as a pitcher, you start to recognize, like, I can give up hits. Like, I can give up base hits. Base hits are base hits. Like, good for you. If you don't walk people, those base hits don't turn into anything more than a man on first base. And if you strike a lot of people out, it tends to not matter even if guys get into scoring position. Having a 1.9 FIP, with a 2.26 ERA, tells me he's getting a lot of soft contact. Tells me guys are not taking very good swings against him, and it tells me that he is playing in an oddly large ballpark, which he is, where balls that probably shouldn't be hits turn into hits, but he's still making good pitches. There's nothing more you could say about him other than he goes out every 5th day. You know what you're going to get, and you still can't do anything with it. That's what makes guys an ace.
I agree. And for everybody who listens to this podcast, to watch us hopefully achieve what our goal is, which is to really bridge the gap between analytical statistics and what you see on the field. Flax just did a really good job of explaining to you guys what FIP looks like on the field and understanding that FIP is still a number that is utilized to quantify. Okay, so the soft contact he's talking about is extremely important, and I just want everybody to take a moment and hear that, because this is how we believe analytics and this type of data needs to be used. It's a tool in order to understand that we can see all of these things, right? And then we just now have numbers to quantify them. Either way, let's move on real quick here to former number 1 overall pick, Casey Mize. And let me tell you what.
Auburn Tiger.
This is his 5th season at the big league level. He's battled quite a few injuries throughout his time. Mize is finally looking like he is the dude. that the Tigers thought he was when they took him number 1 overall. Oh, I believe it was 2018. I'm proven right.
I'm going to be the guy who is going to throw hand up accountability here, because I said at the beginning of the year and in the offseason where I thought, and even through spring training, where I thought Casey Mize was going to end up was going to be very similar to a Tommy Hunter, who has all the qualities. For those of you who remember Tommy Hunter, played for the Rangers, played for the Orioles for a long time, has all the stuff and all the makings and all the pitches to be a starter. But when you get him in the back end of the bullpen, he's also a guy that could throw 98, 99 and close out a game with no problem. I still think Casey Mize could be that guy. The likelihood that he needs to be that guy right now when he's throwing 5 pitches at a 10% or higher clip, all for strikes, all with insanely good command, leads to a guy who is behind Screwball year number 2 right now. Very clearly.
Yeah, and Job's been hurt, right? I think there's a level to which that has been disappointing for Tigers fans to see after what he looked like last year and what we know he can be.
And his whiff numbers aren't where they need to be able to play at this big league level just yet, but they will be.
So I love you bringing that up. And the reason why I love you bringing that up is because that has been the largest improvement for Mize this season. And again, we talk about it a lot of times on this podcast, right? Pitch mix and the way you utilize your arsenal is extremely important. When you take a look, and the layman can see this. I'm not telling you guys anything you couldn't figure out yourself. But my example would be when you look at his Baseball Savant page and you have a chance to dissect what he's done. Upping the splitter usage, but also finding a more consistent shape on his splitter, maybe for the first time in his career, has allowed him to really excel, right? The depth that he gets on it is consistently in a spot that makes sense. He comes from a higher arm angle slot, which means he's got an insane amount of ride on his fastball. We're talking about a guy who sits somewhere between, anywhere between 14 and 24. Yeah, around 24 IVB from a fastball perspective.
What?
And now you're taking that to a splitter that is consistently depthy, and coming out of that high slot is more effective. I really love what they've done with Mize, and the biggest piece for me is he's a high extension guy, which means his 94 plays a little bit harder, and it also, again, gives them less time to identify when that split is coming out. So
I was going to ask you this question. I was going to ask you the question about his extension, actually, because it's pulled back a hair. It's only pulled back like a small bit. Do you think that's more a factor of he's got a slight difference in his extension pitch to pitch, and now that he's throwing his pitches for a broader percentage, the average is coming down? Or do you think he's shifting something to get a little bit more control of his lower half getting down the mound to sink it a little bit, to sink it up a little bit with his arm and maybe not get as far out in front of himself?
So when I see a guy's extension who has always had good extension, which Mize has always had good extension when you look through his career, when I see a guy narrow that extension, and this is exactly, it's funny, I slid down, for everybody listening, I did not do previous extension research, I just see it and read it this way. What he was doing is exactly what you'll see on his Savant page, which he was making sure that everything was even from a body perspective. So knocking down his extension on his fastball that might have been 7, or last year it was 7.1, this year it's 6.8, okay? But what we really did here, and I'm going to read this off for everybody, last year his four-seam fastball 7.1, his slider 7, his split finger 6.9, his sinker 7, his, I'm just going to keep the pitches he's throwing this year, his slurve 6.8. His extension numbers this season: four-seam fastball 6.8, split finger 6.8, slurve 6.8, slider 6.8, sinker 6.9, sweeper, which he's thrown once, 6.7. I'm bringing that up for one reason, and if you couldn't figure out why I'm bringing that up, then I don't even know why I'm here at this point. It's a consistency of release, okay? This is something that we talked about heavily with, wow, I can see his face, but I can't spit out his name. Toronto Blue Jays, we talked about him.
Chris Bassett.
Thank you. This is something we talked about heavily with Bassett.
I'm all over
Bassett
him
is
today.
not as much of an extension guy, but everything from an extension perspective and where he releases the ball is the same.
And for those who don't know, extension is the distance between the rubber and where the pitcher's release is from, their release point is from, and it's measured in feet.
So there's a level of which this is not only helping him probably be more consistent within his mechanics, right? One, it's showing consistency in mechanics, because if you're letting the ball go at the exact same spot on all of your pitches, you've done something in that space. But it's just going to consistently make it harder for people to tell what's coming. And lo and behold, his splitter has literally 5 additional points in whiff rate this year. His fastball has 3 additional points in whiff rate this year, right? His slurve has, well, his slurve's not a good example because he didn't throw it enough last year. But point being is there's a level of consistency that this is bringing Mize, and I'm happy to see it. It allows him to tunnel and really sequence people at a much higher level. And again, we talk about the going both ways situation. Mize does have an arsenal of which he throws every single one of his pitches this year more than 10% of the time. He's got a sinker and he's got a split that are both running arm side. The four seam has some arm side run. And then he's got a slurve and a slider that have slightly different profiles. But what I love about those two is they have a 4 to 5 mile an hour difference in velo, which is, I think, really what makes that combo effective, but both going the same direction. So
the only other thing I'll say here, just as a visual person, when we talk about tunneling pitches, when we talk about profiles and movement, take 2 pitches that he throws, the sinker and the splitter. A splitter is a pitch that does not rotate a ton, and for him probably falls to his arm side. Correct. The sinker is a pitch that tries to mimic in rotation a fastball, but has more downward and arm side movement. Having those 2 pitches play on the same profile because they are thrown an average of 6 to 7 miles an hour different from each other is a good time to have 2 pitches run on that same plane.
100%.
If he had his fastball and his sinker, which are around the same speed, running in the same plane, that would not be beneficial because those 2 pitches look too similar and move too similarly to actually visually do anything for the hitter. So you're basically taking something out of the arsenal. So when Ryan says that that he's tunneling those pitches and that he's working those pitches off of each other and that they have a similar profile, because they're so different in the style of the pitch itself, them having a similar profile is really beneficial to him.
Right. And when we say similar profile, it's what your eyes are seeing, right? The arm side run on both of those pitches is relatively close when we look at his sinker and splitter. However, the splitter generally has 5 to 6 more inches of depth, right? When you see that depth is what gets him swings and misses. If you want a good example of a guy right now who we've talked about in the past who probably needs to figure something out, and we talked about him a couple weeks ago, that's Yennier Cano. And right now, Cano, for example, throws a sinker and a changeup, 46%, 27%. These are his most thrown pitches. They have the exact same movement profile, but are only 4 miles an hour different. He's struggling this year. In our opinion, and in my opinion especially, he's struggling because if you are not sequencing correctly, all you did is speed up the guy's barrel and you're just going to give up a bunch of hits on the changeup.
And if you're not locating them in different places, right? Choosing 100%. To throw these pitches in different spots is also really important.
If you throw
using them differently.
If he goes sinker and gets a guy late on it down and in and then throws changeup down and in, the guy's going to hit a line drive up the middle just about every time. Right. All you did is speed up his bat, right? I'll give everybody a real-life example from this weekend. I made a bad decision to throw a splitter over the middle of the plate while I had already beat a guy with a fastball.
You sped his barrel up.
All I did was speed his barrel up, and he hit a double into the left field corner. Like, I did that to myself, right? Should have thrown a slider off the pitch, and I would have been just fine. But this is real understanding of when pitches have similar profiles, you have to do something about it. And if a pitch is not depthy enough and has a similar profile, it's going to get hit pretty hard most times. But let's keep moving on from
we got technical there. I don't want to move on from the Tigers though.
Go ahead.
Because I do want to talk about, just from a more baseball instinct, stuff that they're doing really well, some intangibles and some unique things that most of the rest of the league is not doing, that I do think will continue because of roster construction and the way that they're doing it. They're hitting left-handed starters very well. They're one of only 3 teams who's got double-digit wins against left-handed starters. They only fall 1 game behind the Brewers in wins. The Brewers have 12, they have 11. And most teams are about 500 or worse against left-handed pitchers. They're like an inevitable loss half the time for most teams that face them, and that's not really an ideal situation. The other thing they're doing is they're winning a lot of one-run games. This is not unusual for teams that are successful, but it is what makes them successful because they have a good bullpen. Tommy Canley in their bullpen having a 1.46 ERA, big reason why they're winning a ton of one-run ball games. They're winning them late, they're getting ahead early and holding leads. They're doing it in a lot of different ways. Those are 2 intangibles that the way that roster is constructed is going to keep them playing good baseball for a very long time this season.
The comment I have on the one-run games, and I love this thought process, is for all of you who think AL Central baseball is bad, those teams play one-run games more than anybody for whatever reason.
They play a ton.
And the teams who are very good in the AL Central almost always are extremely good in one-run ball games, and that's not just against their own division. It is a very weird thing in the AL Central. I kind of love it. Also, the 2022 Seattle Mariners, who broke the playoff streak, they were unbelievable in one-run baseball games. So, sorry, go ahead. What else do you think is going to last for the Tigers down the stretch here?
Good defense. They're playing very good defense. They are top 5 in most defensive metric categories. They are 9th in defensive runs saved this year. Again, you mentioned it. Finding a spot for Javi can be beneficial as a defender is A, helping his offense, but B, is helping the team. It's great that you have a guy like that you can put out there. Now, Parker Meadows just got brought back from the IL. Curious to see how they float their outfield defensively with a lot of, depth coming. But even so, he's playing such an elite defense in center field. I don't know how you don't give him, continue to give him more starts.
Spark plug. That's what Baez is.
A few things that probably are going to need to be cleaned up to keep things moving. Their May offensively was not nearly as good as their April. Now, to be fair, their April was phenomenal. But they are 5th in strikeouts in baseball in the month of May. The only teams that they are ahead of in not having the most strikeouts are some pretty bad teams. They were middle of the pack in OBP. They're not walking nearly as much in May either. So if you're going to strike out a ton, you got to find some walks to even them out. You can start to see some of these things starting to crack, but the pitching staff's been phenomenal. 5th in total ERA, 4th in starter ERA, and 3rd in reliever ERA this year, and they continue to do it even through May, just keeping them kind of at status quo. The nice thing is when you jump out to a spot like this as a 39-21 team, you can play slightly above average baseball and still set yourself up well for the playoffs. You'd like to play better, but not everybody's going to stay hot all year. If your June isn't great, your July will be better. If your June and July aren't great, your August and September will be better. They're too good of a baseball team for things to fall off. So I don't really think too heavily about what needs to be thought of or focused on. But either way, that's the last thing I have on the Tigers. I'm pumped for them. I'm a big Tigers fan outside of the Orioles just because of my buddy Matt, who works for them, and his twin brother Eric, who did mention to me this week that we were not having enough Tigers talk. So for them, there you go.
Cheers, boys. Cheers. Let's move from the top end of the league to, unfortunately, the bottom end of the league here, and that's the Colorado Rockies, who, after we had this discussion all last year about the Chicago White Sox being on a historic pace, the Rockies said, "Hold my beer," and they are 9-50, as mentioned a couple times. My note on here is I don't even know how to do this nicely. So just like reading everything on a teleprompter, I'm going to just say that out loud. Flax, where do you start with this? My thoughts come into, I think, what I would do to continue to move this, but tell us about the Rockies and what you're seeing.
Well, let me start with this. The Rockies are playing tonight and could very well get their 10th win against the Miami Marlins.
Yes.
But prior to tonight's game, the Denver Broncos, entering this month, have 10 wins as a team in their latest season, and the Rockies still have 9. Even worse, 16 tornadoes have touched down in the Denver metro area in 2025. Only 9 wins have touched down in the Denver metro area for the Rockies this year. So that's where I start.
Oh, man. And I thought reading the teleprompter was bad.
I think that the way to go about this from our perspective is not to sit here and say what's going wrong, why are they not doing well. Watch the games. It's not like we don't need to tell you what's going wrong. Guys aren't hitting, pitchers are giving up runs. Those are losses. The focus for us is put us in the seat. What do we do to start moving things in the right direction? And I think you're kind of at a point right now where you do have a lot of young talent. 100%. You have Ryan Ritter, just named the organization's Player of the Month, an absolutely gaudy month of May with the AAA Albuquerque Isotopes. You have a Zach Veen who's now getting some time at the big league level. You have young pieces in Brenton Doyle, Ezekiel Tovar, Jordan Beck. Michael Toglia just got sent back down. Hopefully we can figure out what's going on with him. But he's still a really good, lively piece.
Potential switch-hitting power guy. I mean,
right.
I told you earlier in the year that his profile reminds me of Justin Smoke. And if they can get the 3 years that a couple teams got out of Smoke, they're not going to be unhappy because it's going to play even better in Colorado.
Exactly. So when you look at all these things, they have a lot of pieces. Now, one thing we've learned is that from an analytical perspective on the pitching side, we saw this in reports, that they don't necessarily have the most information to give their players as some other teams do.
Comparatively to other teams. That's a good way.
We're not sitting here saying that they don't have analytics. Everybody has analytics. What they are choosing to put forth on the table is maybe not to the same extent that others are putting forth on the table, as we have seen in reports. I think if I'm in the GM seat, the first thing I do is I revamp that, especially from a pitching side. And I don't sit here and say, hey, go find me guys that match what we know to be a good pitcher. I sit here and I say, hey, let's think about this a different way because we play somewhere where nobody else plays. And that's at altitude. And things are different. Trevor May has talked about it. Adam Ottavino got on MLB Network the other day and talked about it. Your ball breaks 80% less. A ball breaking 80% less for a pitcher is a recipe for disaster. Like a slider that breaks 80% less at sea level is a cement mixer over the heart of the plate that turns into a home run every single time. So if that's your norm in Colorado, what are we looking for? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know what that is. Sure. That's not who I am as a baseball fan, as a baseball knower. It's not your job.
It's mine.
I'm not an analytics guy. But that being said, there are probably known metrics that we could look at from guys who have had success here. Right? Think about guys that have had success here. They throw funky ways, they have odd deliveries, and they don't throw hard. This may not be the recipe to success here, throwing really, really hard. Maybe the recipe to success here is having a guy who throws 9 different pitches in weird spots. And we go search high and low in the Mexican League and in the MPB and the KBO and find some arms that are absolutely precision shooters from 60 feet 6 inches all around the zone with 6 to 7 different pitches, right? Let's think different because you play in a different space. That's where I start as a GM. Ryan, I know you have thoughts as far as like players. We talked about this a little bit, and I want your opinion. But I think players on the field aside, there's structural changes that need to happen in the way that you approach the game and you approach roster construction as a whole.
When you're playing somewhere that is so different, you can't have the same mindset as everybody else in the league. And we fall into the pattern of this is what works. We've watched it happen at all levels of baseball with velo and spin. When we talk about pitching specifically, we've seen it with hitters in launch angle, exit velocity, and things of that nature. Now, we can probably think pretty normally with hitters, or what I would say is the current norm with hitters in a place like Colorado. But I do agree with your thought process from an analytical perspective on pitching. Now, I'm not going to dive too far into that. I have my own thoughts of what might work here, but that's for another day. Let's talk about what we think the Rockies need to do moving forward. And I think that's a super important thing to start with is we all love Ryan McMahon, but regardless of how he started the season,
Mr.
you got to get
Copy-paste
something.
himself.
You have to get something out of him. He's got 2.5 years of control, which to me could potentially help you maximize a return. His contract basically has you at $16 million per year, which with the way he's played this year, maybe not the best, but I think there's a good argument to say a change of scenery probably sees him improve his offensive play. Additionally, too, as a team coming into this, you might even be able to bait the Rockies into taking a couple million off of that in order to help you with your own roster construction. Plus, what does McMahon do consistently and extremely well at all points in time? And that's play a very, very solid third base. We've watched him do that all year this year, despite his struggles at the dish. I'm moving Ryan McMahon, and I'm moving Ryan McMahon for multiple players, okay? How do we do this? Again, you probably eat a little bit of the cost, but with 2.5 years of controllability, I'm not looking for one guy here. I'm not looking for that Alexis Diaz swap that the Dodgers just made with the Reds. I want 2 to 3 guys that I think could potentially help this roster over the next 2 to 4 years. We're going to probably spread out the ages of players within that deal in order to help the depth of the minor league organization. The next thing that I'm doing, regardless of them just sending a guy like Tolia down, is I'm finding ways to make space for these young guys to get majority of the at-bats. And I'm doing it for 2 different reasons. One, I do truly believe that in this scenario, when your team is this bad, you let the people on the field decide who gets to play. You have to have a competitive culture where the guys who hit will play. Look at what's been happening with Hunter Goodman and Jordan Beck. Beck got sent down after 2 weeks of the season to do a little bit. And then since he's come up, he's absolutely raked. And what's happened? He hasn't left the field. Goodman won his spot in spring training and has continued to rake. Ergo, he's finding a way on the field, whether that's DHing or catching every single night. And I actually believe he has a couple starts in the outfield. If he doesn't this year, he did last year. But either way, I'm finding a way to get those guys some opportunities. And then what am I doing next after continuing to let the young guys fight it out and really cut their teeth at the major league level? I'm finding a way to get guys like Ryan Ritter and Zach Veen at bats at the major league level. Now, this is the catch. When you look at these guys and you look at where we are in the season, we're in a scenario here where what the Royals are going to deal with, which is they probably just made Jack Caglione a Super 2, and now you pay him 4 years of arbitration, not 3. Again, I don't believe in any type of crazy roster manipulation, but when I look at these guys, I'm probably waiting till mid-June and then everybody is on the table to come up because I'm not at this point worried about the additional draft pick. I'm already relegated in 2026 to having a 10th
11th or low.
Worse.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yep. So I'm not worried about finding additional draft compensation. I'm going to let these guys play and try to see who's going to win a spot on my roster next year. From an organizational perspective, the focus right now with the pick we have in 2025 is extremely heavy on the draft to try to bring in more talent after bringing Charlie Condon in last year. And then finally, let's talk about the one thing we haven't. They fired Bud Black and they're 2-16 since they did it. Didn't make him any better. And we said it wasn't going to make him any better either because Bud Black is a seasoned veteran. I don't say that negatively to the decisions they made on Bud Black or the people that they put into the place, but there is a level of which internally I need to have this coaching staff or this coaching staff overhaul at top of mind because I need to pick the right next leader for a young group of players. And I'm going to emphasize this again, a young group of players. There are managers who are fantastic with veteran players, and they've been in the league forever. I frankly, as great as those guys have been, I don't care. That is not what I'm looking for in this scenario. The Rockies are a team of young, high upside, talented guys that we need to pull more out of. I'm looking for a guy who can build that type of culture.
And they exist, right? They don't have to be young themselves.
Terry Franco.
Bruce Bochy is a great example of a guy who has a lot of young guys on a roster, is a much older guy, and still knows how to pull a lot out of those younger players.
There are people who just innately do it. They work with the younger group. I think the final note that I have on the Rockies here, and you never want to look too far ahead, but at 9-50, there is a level of emphasis I have on who in the world do I think I can attract next offseason to help this team. That's not easy to do, but you're going to be looking at guys who are willing to take 1-year flyer contracts. And this is where a lot of teams who are able to get out of a rebuild or a retool quicker do things extremely well, which is they bring in guys who do perform well within that contract, and then they move them at the deadline for prospects. We need to find a way in Colorado in this sense to do a little bit better of a job of that. When you look at their roster right now, outside of McMahon, who does not fall in this category because he's been on the roster for X amount of years, I don't see a single guy that the Rockies have on the roster that can do that right now. And we're talking about a place that is a hitter's paradise, right? We talked about why we thought they should have brought in Gavin Sheets. Not saying Gavin wanted to come to Colorado, but his numbers would be even more inflated potentially in a Rockies uniform.
Not saying it was a lineup that could have protected him the same way and given him as much to hit, but the likelihood that he still could have been more successful here than Chicago is still very, very much possible.
Correct. So what I'm getting at here more than anything in bringing up Sheets is the fact that that's the type of opportunity that we need to see the Rockies go after, right? And I use the team that I've watched for a long time, and I watch every time I can in the Nationals, as a good example of doing that. Heimer Candelario a couple years ago, Kyle Schwarber even further back. The ability to bring in a veteran-type guy on a smaller deal, or a shorter deal, I should say, and get something out of them at the deadline because you chose right. The Rockies need a little bit of that going forward, I think, in order to really help them build and stockpile their minor leagues and hopefully target, when they make these trades, guys who make more sense. So there's my Ryan's GM corner on the Colorado Rockies.
And that's why we will run a team someday and be just fine.
Okay. Well, that up to this point is all we have to say about the Rockies.
Again, we started this with how do we do this nicely, and that's as nice as we can probably do this without really diving into what's going wrong, because diving into what's going wrong doesn't change the future, and that's not really where this team should be focused.
No, a lot of young talent. We've gotten to watch double-digit games already of this roster. It is not for lack of talent. It truly isn't, and I think that's really important for us to go out and state. They
not for lack of fans either.
You're absolutely correct. All right, well, we're gonna have to save these first 2 months award for next week's episode, as we flew past our normal marks here. Flax, final thoughts. I'm gonna go first, and I'm gonna be really easy and quick. I've said this a couple times on the podcast. James Wood is really good at baseball. Like, really good at baseball. His numbers are relatively over however many games he's played, because I don't remember the number, but I did see the stat line yesterday. Almost identical to Juan Soto's start to his career as well. I do recognize Juan was technically a little bit younger. Don't really care. James Wood, new comp, Barry Bonds. Let's go.
Jesus. My final thought, Jackson Holliday is going to be the AL starting second baseman. For those of you that wanted to write off a 20-year-old, here's the 21-year-old. I don't know what to tell you.
He can drink now. Let's go.
Yeah, right. That's what it is. They started putting beer in the homer hose for him instead of water in the homer hose. No, but that's all I got on him. He's a machine. I have a feeling he will not stick around in the leadoff spot with Colton Cowser coming back after Cowser gets his feet wet. But I like him there. I like him there a lot. Tony Mansolino, pretty much after Brandon Hyde got fired, went to him and said, hey, just want you to know, righties, lefties, you're pretty much going to start every day at second base. So stop worrying about it and go play baseball. It helps.
We've had that discussion before as well. Thank you guys so much for listening. As always, like, follow, subscribe. But before you do any of that, let's go over to our good friend Jackson Scudder to tell me how many things I got wrong. And no, saying Ryan Flaherty does not count because Flax already corrected me. So Jackson,
we're definitely putting a half
did we
point
get
on the
wrong?
board.
No. You ruined that. You ruined that off the board. Jackson, tell us what we did wrong.
Overall, pretty good day for the boys. But I'm starting it out. Doesn't count as a mistake. But Ryan, you have to learn how to say names. Edwin Diaz, Chris Bassett. Let's figure it out. Edwin Diaz has been one of the best closers in baseball for 5 years. Let's remember a name for once in a while.
Shout out me for pulling those.
This is getting rough to listen to.
Shout out me for pulling 3 different names for Ryan today. 2 off the top of my head, and 1 was a correction.
That was rough to listen to him trying to Edwin Diaz's name. That was tough to listen. Again, not counting that as an error. I'm just pointing it out. That needs to be said.
Yeah. All right.
So we
I'll take that one right here.
First official error on the day. For people listening, we have a doc that has like all of everything we're going to say in it. We misspelled Brusdar Graterol's name. Did not put a D in it. In the first name. Did not put a D in it, so I'm giving both of y'all a mark for that.
That's
because it was then mispronounced.
I'll take both of us a mark. I like that.
Gosh,
Okay. Next up, we have Ryan saying that Gleyber Torres was providing above average defense at second base. -1 OAA. That is not.
That's a range stat. You're the analytics guy. Don't even play like that's a big deal.
What's
my
goodness.
goodness.
What was the stat you
24th percentile.
What was the stat you used for his defense that made you think he was playing above average?
I didn't use a stat for his defense. I said he's providing above average defense, which, in my personal opinion, his defense -1 OAA. What are we complaining about here?
24th percentile. If it was like 45th, I would have maybe. If it was like 1 OAA, I'm leaving it off.
All right.
And then, lastly, y'all talked about it in the episode of Ryan making the Flaherty mistake. My ruling on that is that Flax gets -1 for catching the mistake.
Let's go.
Stupid. No.
Come on, baby. Oh,
So
man.
final tally on the day was Ryan got +2 and Flax got 0 because
I canceled out. Come
Canceled out.
on. Wow,
I'm
that's
the one who made this segment up, and I think we're going to have to cut it.
that steak dinner. That steak dinner is going to taste so nice for us, Jackson.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
So our tally now rides up to 9 and Flax is staying at 5.
We are building a lead. That's what that's called right there.
When I don't show up next week, I'll let you understand why.
See, my worry is that the detriment here is Ryan is going to start recording these episodes with like zero flow because he's just going to be so careful about what he says just to not make mistakes.
I made sure this week y'all asked me to help put stats in it. I try to put as much stats as humanly possible to try to make sure y'all made mistakes.
I'm like, there were a couple of different people where I didn't see any stats, and I was just like, oh boy, what am I gonna say here? And then I tried to like work around it. It's a mess. He's setting us up for failure, Ryan.
I would like to say that I would never compromise my flow just to get things right.
That's good to know.
Just throwing it out there. Okay? Well, I wanted Jackson to make this funny, but I thought he'd be talking more crap to Flax. So,
yeah, me too. Me too, because I don't even hear
Trust
half
me,
the
I
stuff.
want to.
I don't even hear half the stuff that comes out of my mouth, which is crazy.
Either way,
I was trying to figure out what the title of this episode. I couldn't even remember what we talked about.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, before you think we are all clueless outside of Jackson, like, follow, subscribe, and if nothing else, we'll maybe just start cutting this into clips so that you get to see it. Jackson will continue to play Tony Reale here for us and be Mr. We're going to go back to calling him Stat Boy because it makes me feel better after all the crap I'm going to take. So either way, have a wonderful week. Thanks for hanging out with all of us. We'll see you guys on Sunday for the live show. Later.